Hi, my name is Vanya Agarwal on behalf of Team Online 1. This is our artifact review for week 14. So it's currently November 17th, which means we are halfway through our Sprint 2. We just finished up Sprint 1 about a week ago, and our Sprint 1 goal was to develop a prototype of our Alert Originator interface so that we can verify our design meets all requirements and expectations before development begins. So this includes setting up our initial code base, creating mock-ups, and researching and selecting tools for developing a prototype of the Alert Originator interface, or AOI for short. We definitely met all of our Sprint 1 goals, the first being setting up an initial code base. So here we have our GitHub repository for our AOI, and in this repository we have a solid foundation for building on top of in the future for our AOI. So within here we have some Docker containers set up for our Apache server, our REST server, as well as our database. We also have some sample code for our REST server that is fully functional and uses data within the system. And within this REST server, we have some different code that defines our controllers for our REST server, our model for our database, and services for interacting between the two of those. And on top of that, we also have our database for our users defined, as well as scripts for initializing them. So in addition to setting up our initial code base, we also created a lot of mock-ups and architectural diagrams and specifications for our AOI. A lot of these were shown in our last artifact review, but they have since been modified and updated. So we have our use case diagrams, our class diagrams for the back end as well as the front end. We also have a specification for the UI and mock-ups for the UI itself for the typical user view as well as the admin view. And something that is new is the RESTful API spec, which defines the API for the REST server. So on top of setting up the initial code base and creating mockups, we also met the Sprint 1 goal by researching and selecting tools to use for our AOI prototype. So along the way, we did decide on a couple of libraries like CPP REST SDK, which will help us with defining our REST server and the like with our AOI. So we are currently in Sprint 2, and we've kind of switched gears from our AOI over to our Central Aggregator and Dissemination Gateway, or CADG for short. So the goal for Sprint 2 is to develop a prototype of the CADG so we can verify our design meets all requirements and expectations before development begins. So this, again, includes setting up the initial code base, creating mockups, and researching and selecting tools for developing a prototype of the CADG. So for setting up the initial code base, just like with the AOI, we do have our GitHub repository set up. We have some Docker containers set up for our REST server, for our Apache server. We also have our initial configuration set up for our Apache server and some code going for adding logging to the REST server. In addition to setting up our initial code base, we're also in the process of researching tools for development and creating our mockups. So on our sprint board, you can see we have a lot of tasks in progress for determining a database library, for also choosing libraries for parsing XML, and for creating our mockups for our UI. So this is our progress right now in Sprint 2, and we are well on our way to meeting our goal for Sprint 2 as well. Thanks.